That's
I'm afraid you're
Kevin and
thinking.
Caitlin.
Kevin and Caitlin.
Okay, for them I guess you can. On Christmas Eve many years ago, I lay quietly in my bed. I did not rustle the sheets. I breathed slowly and silently. I was listening for a sound a friend had told me I would never hear. The ringing bells of Santa's sleigh. There is no Santa, my friend had insisted, but I knew he was wrong. And late that night I did hear sounds, though not of ringing bells. From outside came the sounds of hissing steam and squeaking metal. I looked through my window and saw a train standing perfectly still in front of my house.
Pictures.
Did you show Polly?
I saw it.
Oh.
I'm looking over her shoulder.
She's seen it. It was wrapped in an apron of steam. Snowflakes fell lightly around it. A conductor stood at the open door of one of the cars. He took a large pocket watch from his vest and looked up at my window. I put on my slippers and robe. I tiptoed downstairs and out the door. "All aboard!" the conductor cried out. I ran up to him. "Well," he said, "are you coming?" "Where?" I asked. "Why, to the North Pole, of course," was his answer. "This is the Polar Express." I took his outstretched hand and pulled me aboard. Oops. I'm not going to make it through the story, sorry. I can tell. Okay. The train was filled with other children, all in their pajamas and nightgowns. We sang Christmas carols and ate candies with nougat centers as white as snow. We drank hot chocolate or hot cocoa as thick and rich as melted chocolate bars. Outside, the lights of towns and villages flickered in the distance as the Polar Express raced northward. Should have this on the screen or something. Soon there were no more lights to be seen. We traveled through cold, dark forests where lean wolves roamed and white-tailed rabbits hid from our train as it thundered through the quiet wilderness. We climbed mountains so high it seemed as if we would scrape the moon. But the Polar Express never slowed down. Faster and faster we ran along, rolling over peaks and through valleys like a car on a roller coaster. The North Pole. It was a huge city standing alone at the top of the world, filled with factories where every Christmas toy was made. At first we saw no elves. "They are gathering at the center of the city," the conductor told us. "That is where Santa will give the first gift of Christmas." "Who receives the first gift?" we all asked. The conductor answered, "He will choose one of you." Oops, sorry, picture. "Look," shouted one of the children, "the elves!" Outside we saw hundreds of elves. As our train drew closer to the center of the North Pole, we slowed to a crawl. So crowded were the streets of Santa's helpers. When the Polar Express could go no further, we stopped and the conductor led us outside. We pressed through the crowd to the edge of a large open circle. In front of us stood Santa's sleigh. The reindeer were excited. they pranced and paced, ringing the silver bells. Ringing the silver bells that hung from their harnesses. It was a magical sound, like nothing I'd ever heard. Across the circle, the elves moved apart and Santa Claus appeared. The elves cheered wildly. He marched over to us and pointed to me, he said, "Let's have this fellow here." He jumped into his sleigh. The conductor handed me up. I sat on Santa's knee and he asked, "Now, what would you like for Christmas?" I knew that I could have any gift I could imagine, but the thing I wanted most for Christmas was not inside Santa's giant bag. What I had wanted more than anything was one silver bell from Santa's sleigh. When I asked, Santa smiled, and then he gave me a hug and told an elf to cut a bell from a reindeer's harness. The elf tossed it up to Santa. He stood holding the bell high above him and called out, "The first gift of Christmas." A clock struck midnight as the elves roared their approval. Santa handed the bell to me, and I put it in my bathrobe pocket. The conductor helped me down from the sleigh, and Santa shouted out the reindeer's names and cracked his whip. His team charged forward and climbed into the air. Santa circled once above us, then disappeared into the dark polar sky. As soon as we were back inside the Polar Express, the other children asked to see the bell. I reached into my pocket, but the only thing I felt was a hole. I had lost the silver bell. God, it's terrible. Let's hurry outside and look for it, one of the children said. But the train, the train gave a sudden lurch, and we started moving. We were on our way home. Is it time for dinner yet? Okay. Thank you. It broke my heart to lose the bell. When the train reached my house, I sadly left the other children. I stood at my doorway and waved goodbye. The conductor said something from the moving train, but I couldn't hear him. "What?" I yelled out. He cupped his hands around his mouth. "Merry Christmas," he shouted. And the Polar Express let out a loud blast from its whistle and sped away. On Christmas morning, my little sister Sarah and I opened our presents. When it looked as if everything had been unwrapped, Sarah found one last small box under the tree. It had my name on it. Inside was a silver bell.
So we love about you.
Yeah, Dad said, "Don't ever change
That's
Never
terrible.
change burdens.
Yeah.
Do they make you do this every year?
Every
the
year.
fries every year."
I'm gonna retire pretty soon. Okay. Inside was a silver bell. There was a note. "Found this on the seat of my sleigh. Fix that hole in your pocket. Signed, Mr. C." I shook the bell and made the most beautiful sound my sister and I had ever heard. But my mother said, "Oh, that's too bad." "Yes," my father said, "it's broken." When I'd shaken the bell, my parents had not heard a sound. This is terrible. This is the worst I've ever done. I should not work today.
Yeah. Okay,
Can I have a short break?
What? Oh, what?
What's a break?
Oh.
One more page.
At one time, most of my friends could hear the bell. But as years passed, it fell silent for all of them. Dang it. Even Sarah found one Christmas that she could no longer hear its sweet sound. Though I've grown old, the bell still rings for me, as it does for all who truly believe.
Bravo.
Curtis.
Ring the bell.
Ring the bell.
Ring the bell.
Where is it?
No, hold it by the thing.
I can hear it. Anyway.
Every
Okay,
year.
can I go to my room now?
Love you, Dad.
Thank you, Curtis.
Hey,
Thanks
Curtis.
for doing that, Curtis.
Just
Yeah.
copy that.
Yes, I'll
I'll
send
send
it
it
to
to Kevin and Caitlin.
Peter's also crying.
Thanks for the torture.
Okay, let's eat.
Okay.
Thank you, Curtis.
You're welcome.
George.
Thanks.
Ah.
I better get good presents.